In addressing my style of management conflict or conflict resolution, I think I fit in a democratic type of shelf, if you will, as opposed to the laissez-faire or the authoritative one, although I think good management style requires you to recognize that at times authoritarian is required, sometimes laissez-faire is the needed resolution. Stand back and let the resolution fix itself, so to speak. But you have to recognize, I think that's the talent of a good manager, is to recognize which to use. I think the most important lessons I've learned after being a lawyer, prosecutor, running an office for so many years is that clearly I have to identify or dignify the people I work with, the people I work against, since I'm a prosecutor in an adversarial position. Respond positively to them even if the message is negative. It's giving them a voice. Don't just hear them, listen to opposing sides. I think the most difficult aspect for me in conflict resolution is staying above the fray. It's like you have to step back and stay away from the personalities involved, focusing on what the real problem that is causing the conflict. If it's personalities, then it may require some separation. If it's a method or a philosophical difference, sometimes just letting people have their voice, their say, is all that's required. Again, I think it comes down to dignify both sides, the viewpoints of both sides, and if the resolution is, if I'm in the position of having to make a decision, I think I have to recognize and state that I appreciate both viewpoints, but make a decision based on my own experience. Staying focused, I think, is really the key thing. You have to identify the problem, not ignore the problem. If I had any goals for conflict management, most of them would be internal. I've stated before that staying above the fray, I think, is essential, but it's something I've always had to struggle with, and I'm at my best when I'm able to stand back and look at the situation as if I were not part of it. It allows me to assess what the real problem is. It allows me to assess whether I need to become involved in the conflict at all. It allows me to assess how I approach it, whether I have to be authoritative or allow some democratic philosophies to come in and let them decide. I always think achieving a consensus is the best thing to have between two people, so I think that's my first goal in trying to stand back and say, all right, what is the goal that I'm trying to achieve here? In a global, multicultural environment, as I prepare to go overseas, I have to constantly be on the lookout not to be the ugly American, that being the person who says, well, I'm from America, and we somehow have this arrogant perception. Sometimes it's rightfully dawned on us, and sometimes it's not. But I think Americans often have this perception that they're better educated, more wealthy, they have everything, therefore they have the answers to everything. That clearly is not true. In fact, maybe lessons to be learned in the past few years would indicate that we may not have earned those things honestly, and we have not treated our global neighbors appropriately. I think being a good manager requires that you first off lay what ground rules the people you are working with or trying to manage must live by. If you don't say what is acceptable or unacceptable behavior, then you are not being an effective manager. I think, again, do not let viewpoints be demeaning or belittling. If you're trying to resolve a conflict among coworkers or any two people, I think it requires that forcing them into a position where they actually are focusing on the problem itself. If there's name calling or demeaning attitudes or a better than thou attitude, that certainly is not going to get anybody anywhere. And I don't think, even if you achieved a resolution, that it would be ultimately a long-lasting and satisfactory resolution. Any advice I might give to anybody after doing this for 25 years of running an office and managing court dockets and doing trial work where it's inherently conflicting, the advice I give is, again, leave people with their dignity. Do not box people into corners. People will just fight harder and harder, and you'll never achieve the position you want to, except by coercion. Leave room for listening, even if the outcome is certain. At least you may gain some understanding, and they may gain some understanding from your position. Sometimes let other people have the last word.